extremely fascinated by human behavior. And one of the things I've noticed in reading so many natal charts, but not only that, seeing how those natal charts play out in real life, is that often people assign you a role that you don't necessarily feel that you fit. Take, for instance, Cancer rising, the subject of this video, right? Often, when you hear of cancer, when you think of cancer energy, generally you think of caretaker, nurturer, mother figure, protector, right? Emotional, sensitive, all the things, right? And when we're talking about your rising sign specifically, it's how you show up in the world. And so often, as a Cancer rising, you may find that people assign you that caretaker role, or they lean on you emotionally, or they look to you for nurturing or for emotional labor, even. And maybe for some of you that fits, right? But maybe for others, it doesn't. And sometimes you're just like, why are you leaning on me? Like, I can't help you, right? Just because you have a rising sign and people assign you a certain role doesn't mean that you have to fit into that role. And so in this video, I'm going to be discussing the real deal when it comes to Cancer rising and how, even though people may look to you for emotional labor, it is not your job to provide it. So if you want to know more, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If you're new around here, hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer, and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. So if you're new, welcome. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So this is sort of part two to my previous Cancer rising video, which you can find right here and is also linked in the description box below. And I talk about sort of the basic characteristics of Cancer rising, right? That's very basic astrology 101. This video is more interpretive, let's just say that. And we're going to talk about the assignment that you get as a Cancer rising and whether it fits or not. So let's talk about the rising sign. Let's talk about the first house and why this is even a thing. Because as a Cancer rising, you show up in the world through the filter of Cancer energy. So that is sensitive, moody, intuitive, the caretaker, the nurturer, all the things. You know Cancer energy. I don't need to repeat it here, right? Now, when it comes to the first house governs how you physically look. It also governs how you express yourself. So by way of astrology technicality, right? Every planet, or at least all the personal planets, they find joy in a particular house. It means that there's a certain house that every planet rejoices in, where they express themselves completely, where they feel happy. And when it comes to the first house, and therefore your rising sign, Mercury finds joy in the first house. And Mercury deals with expression, how you talk, how you vocalize things, how you express yourself. Okay. This is important because whether you realize it or not, you may subconsciously or unconsciously express Cancer energy. So maybe in the way that you speak, you sound like someone who's nurturing, or you're someone who pays attention to emotions. You're sensitive to other people's emotions, or maybe you're highly intuitive, or maybe even psychic. That may come across when you express yourself, when you open your mouth. And that's sort of where your assignment comes from. Because if you are expressing emotions, if you are expressing yourself as someone who is sensitive, the rest of the world is going to view you as someone who's sensitive and therefore assign you the role of caretaker, assign you the job of emotional labor, right? So you see how, whether you're conscious of it or not, that energy may come through. Now, it's not to say it's a good or bad thing, it just is, right? But then I took it a step further and I thought, well, what about people who don't resonate with the characteristics of their rising sign, right? And that may happen. So maybe you are a Cancer rising, but you are not, I guess, objectively sensitive, or you're not objectively caring. What happens when people still assign you the role of caretaker? That's where things get really interesting.
Hey friend, real quick. So I know you've probably been watching some of my videos and you're like, okay, this is great or this is really interesting, but how does it apply to me? Well, the first place that you would start is with your rising sign. Your rising sign is arguably one of the most important placements in your natal chart. So whether you know your rising sign or not, I created this free guide called Your Rising Sign Strategy. It not only helps explain your rising sign and your chart ruler, but most importantly, it helps you understand how your rising sign shapes your decision making, as well as what that all means when it comes to career, money, and relationships. So if you want to grab the free guide, you can either scan the QR code on screen, especially if you're watching on TV, or if you're watching on mobile or anywhere else, the link is in the description box below. Like I said, it's completely free. And if you're new to my work, this would be the best place to start. So enjoy, and hopefully it's informative. Now, back to the video.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing that may subconsciously or unconsciously come across when you are Cancer rising is how you look. So typically, the rising signs dictate your physical appearance. So, like I said in the first Cancer rising video, you may, Cancer rising is notorious for big boobs. Okay. So, if you're a woman and you're a Cancer rising, maybe you have big boobs. And big boobs typically, can't believe I'm me saying this, big boobs typically have that mothering, nurturing kind of look to them, right? Or maybe you look very feminine. And that's not to say if you're a man in a Cancer rising, you look like a woman, but there's a certain demeanor that you have as a Cancer rising. There's a certain aura that you carry that may be softer, more sensitive, and that may even come across in your features. So when someone sees you and they see this, that's why they may assign you the role of caretaker. And I use the word assign intentionally because, again, there may be a mismatch between how we feel about ourselves and how people perceive us and how they act toward us. So, as a Cancer rising, whether you identify with those characteristics or not, you may find that people often come to you for emotional support. You may be people's therapist. You may be, a shoulder to cry on. You may be someone who, when someone needs something, they come to you for nurturing and for emotional support, to repeat the phrase, right? And so that may or may not rub you the right way because, especially, and I'll get to this in a second as to why this is. But if you don't fit the characteristic, it's almost like you feel like you may not be able to express yourself effectively if everyone is constantly putting this assignment on you and assigning you this role. And that really can take a toll on your ability to show up as yourself, your ability to be authentically yourself, and those things matter. All right. So here is the differentiator. It's wherever the moon is placed in your natal chart. Now, everyone has what's known as a chart ruler, and your chart ruler is the planet that rules your rising sign. And as a Cancer rising, your chart ruler is the moon. Now, the moon is all about emotions, it's all about sensitivity, it's all about intuition and your inner world, very Cancer energy like characteristics, right? But depending on the sign that your moon is in, may determine whether you're someone who's super watery and sensitive or someone who's a little more brash and abrasive. Okay. So let's take, for instance, not Cancer, the moon in Pisces. The moon is already watery and emotional. And in a sign like Pisces, it fits perfectly, right? Because you are highly intuitive, you're spiritual, you are very much attuned to the frequency of emotions. So whether someone is sad, happy, excited, you literally will feel that too, because that's the nature of Pisces. And if the moon is there, that makes you extra watery, extra sensitive. So, as a Cancer rising with your moon in Pisces, it makes sense that people may assign the role of caretaker or psychic or, spiritualist to you because that fits. Now, let's take like something like the opposite, right? Let's take the moon in Aries. The moon in Aries, soft and moon in Aries don't necessarily go together like that, right? Aries is very individualistic, right? Which can be sort of opposite to Cancer energy because Cancer is about nurturing. You need something to nurture, right? Cancer is motherly, whereas Aries is very much about the self. Aries is also bold, direct, dynamic, and perhaps abrasive sometimes, right? The moon also represents how we feel emotionally satiated. Okay. So, what makes you feel good, basically. Now, in Pisces, that energy of altruism, of charity, of selflessness bodes well with the whole Cancer energy signature, right? Because Cancer wants to nurture, Pisces wants to be of service selflessly. See how those go together? Then you got Aries. Aries is like, I'm out for self. What makes me feel good is focusing on me. And I'm not going to swim around issues, right? I'm going to tell you something directly. If there's something that I want to go after it directly rather than using my intuition to guide me. Okay. So you see how the placement of your moon can really affect this assignment that people place on you. So if you are like moon in Cancer, if you got moon in Cancer in the first house as a Cancer rising, yes, you are essentially the caretaker, and you might find that particular role or that particular assignment fulfilling to you. It makes you feel good, right? Because that's where your moon is, and that's where you derive your emotional satisfaction. Even if you've got the moon in Pisces, right? You kind of are on the same wavelength. Okay. But if you've got something like moon in Aries, even moon in Scorpio, Scorpio moon, it's even though it's a water sign as well, Scorpio moon, it's ruled by Mars. So it could still be on some, I'm on my own shit, or, I don't really care about you, or the sort of the unsavory kind of emotions that we often deem repugnant in society. But Scorpio moon, maybe not so soft and tender, maybe a little spiky. But if you've got something like moon in Virgo, moon in Capricorn, that caretaker role may not necessarily, I'm not going to say it may not necessarily fit, it may fit in a different way as well. So I just gave you the example of moon in Aries and how that seems almost opposite to that Cancer energy. But if you've got moon in like Virgo or moon in Capricorn, that caretaker role takes on a different flavor. It becomes more obligatory. It becomes less emotional shoulder to lean on and more, let me help you solve your problem. Okay. Let me give you something to pacify you. Whereas the moon in Cancer, moon in Pisces, that's really going to give you that, let's cry together, or let me help you understand or unpack your emotions. Moon in Virgo, moon in Capricorn is like, what can I do? Where can I throw money at this problem? I'm your therapist, but I'm going to give you practical steps to, work this thing out, right? So it's not to say that that role may not fit. It may not fit in the way that people are assigning it to you, if that makes any sense. Okay. Hopefully those examples help. Now, whether this assignment fits you or not, it's always important to remember that you should express yourself as you see fit. It doesn't matter how people project onto you. It doesn't matter if they need you to show up in a certain way. If that role fits, then play it. If it doesn't, then don't. Because the shadow side of that could really be in my mind's eye, I'm seeing like quicksand. And perhaps, you are falling into the emotional quicksand of someone else's issue or someone else's problem, right? You're a therapist for them, unofficially, or maybe officially if that's your job, but you get wrapped up in their emotions, right? You spend all of your emotional energy on them, and that's not always a good thing, right? Could also be watering the wrong things, nurturing the wrong things, merely because someone expects that of you. Really carrying a lot of emotional labor when it's not necessary or it's not warranted or it's not in your best interest. When we're talking about emotions, we're talking about the element of water, and water flows. And without a proper container, a proper vessel, you can't tell when it begins and when it ends. Boundaries are going to be your best friend in decision making when it comes to Cancer rising, whether you fit the role of caretaker or you don't. Okay. So the shadow side is again that quicksand of emotions that people can really get you enmeshed in or can really impose on you. So boundaries, knowing when to say no, knowing when to put a limit, a wall, letting people sometimes cry by themselves. Telling someone, "Hey, I don't have the emotional bandwidth for this. Catch me another time or go see somebody else," right? Those are going to be your best friend when it comes to decision making and when it comes to just the role that people have assigned to you. So essentially, to bring this all home, I want you to understand sort of how this information plays out in your particular chart. And so when it comes to your rising sign, whether you're a Cancer rising or not, the Cancer rising, the rising sign is the role that society or other people assign to you because it's how you show up in the world, it's how you express yourself, or it's even how you physically look. However, what makes the difference and sort of what speaks to your fitness when it comes to this role, your acceptance of this role, your rejection of this role is your chart ruler and what sign it's placed in. That can let you know whether, you fit the role or you don't. Or even if you fit the role, maybe you fit it in a different way based on the examples that I gave. All right. So hopefully this made sense. I wanted this video to be short, sweet, and to the point. So you kind of got it. If you haven't watched the first Cancer Rising video, I'll leave the link in the description box below so that you can check it out. All right. All right, my love. So that's pretty much all I've got for you for this video. All right. And so if you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you know any Cancer risings who need to hear this message, then share this video with them as well. All right. And if you're interested in this kind of content, you want to see more, you want you want exclusive videos, you want more content, consider joining the channel membership. You can find all of those perks there. All right. And again, don't forget, if you're interested in learning more about your rising sign, get my free rising sign guide strategy. The link is in the description box below. All right, my loves, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.